Okay. Show me.
Hi there guys, welcome to the Dr. C channel. Thank you very much for tuning in for my, what is this actually, a product tip. Let's call it a product tip. This is not so much as a review because this quadcopter, the RekonFPV from RekonFPV, it has been out for quite a while, and I've had this quadcopter for quite a while as well. And this is, in my humble opinion, one of the better quadcopters of 2021. If you are into this kind of quadcopter, it is to me a cinematic 5-inch quadcopter, a lightweight quadcopter at that. It's not like a freestyle quadcopter. It's built to be light, right? And it has a GPS antenna at the rear, which I don't really need. I don't do long-range flights, but okay, you've got that. Maybe you want to see how fast you're traveling, or as a fail-safe device. This, again, in my humble opinion, is one of the better quadcopters of 2021. And let me actually show you one of my captures with this quadcopter. What you are looking at right now is from a GoPro Hero 8. And this is the quadcopter flying at with its stock pitch. This is actually one of my first flights with the quadcopter. And you tell me in the comment section below, in my humble opinion, this looks pretty nice. This is right without any kind of stabilization in camera or afterwards. This is straight from the cam, again, without stabilization. So that looks pretty darn nice, right? I have the 6S version of the RekonFPV. Is there a 4S version? I'm not even sure. I would, if you were considering this quadcopter, definitely go for the 6S version, as that also flies on 4S, if you want to fly on 4S. Yeah, so that looks, again, pretty nice. However, this quadcopter is not perfect. I have the analog version, there's a digital version as well. And I have the bind and fly. Yeah, the bind and fly, mine came with a receiver. However, it's an R-XSR, an FrSky R-XSR receiver, which is over here. And it came set up correctly. However, hopefully you can see the antenna. So this is how the quadcopter came without these white antenna over here. I've added those myself in an effort to improve the quadcopter, because this setup doesn't work well at all. Especially if you want a long range of quadcopter. This severely limits the range of the quadcopter. First of all, these antenna over here get in the way of your LiPo. If you put the LiPo, you can see clearly, right? It gets in the way of the LiPo. So you'll have to shove that LiPo further forward. But there you have your action camera. Right, so these antenna, yeah, if you have the Crossfire version, you don't have this problem. I'm not sure where the Crossfire receiver antenna would be mounted. Probably to the side of the front of the quadcopter over here. But again, I bought myself the bind and fly FrSky version with the antennas over here. So yeah, again, that limits the mounting options for LiPos, but also that LiPo then blocks the signal. And you might think, it'll be alright. No, it won't be alright. With this quadcopter I had myself a terrible range. Now again, I don't do long range flying, but even at short range this severely limits your range. In almost every flight I did with this quadcopter I got low R-XSR warnings, because the antennas were blocked by the LiPo. So especially when flying towards myself, so flying back to myself. You can imagine, right, the LiPo then being in the way of your signal. So today I'm gonna see if I have solved that. This might not be ideal, but I've tried to mount the antenna so that they wouldn't be able to get caught up in the propellers. And they shouldn't be blocked by the LiPo, and this way they are more or less 90 degrees opposed to each other, and this kind of mounting most times works pretty well for me. Usually I get a clear signal with the antennas mounted like this. Usually, if you are familiar with my channel, I'd mount antennas to the front arms pointing 45 degrees backwards, but with these braces and these arms, they would probably interfere with the antenna. So yeah, again, I've tried this setup, and we're gonna see if it actually improves things. That's what we're hoping to solve. Also create a little bit more room for lipos. This here lipo is a little bit big for this quadcopter, an 1100 milliamp R-XSR. That's a bit on the big size for the quadcopter, but you should be able to carry such a big lipo if you want a long range quadcopter. Alrighty guys, with that all said and done, let's try this new antenna placement. And I'm at my usual soccer club, as you will soon see. Now this isn't a huge soccer club, but I know from experience this is more than big enough to trigger low R-XSR warnings with the old placement. So I am now approximately 1 soccer field away from myself. No issues. Well, there is one issue, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's first do our range test. This is a smaller soccer field, as you can see, flying backwards, and yeah, you can't actually see any errors in the OSD. And again, we'll get to that in a sec. But you would hear my radio complain. And this is 2.5 soccer fields away. Let's fly back.
1 minute.
1 minute. No issues whatsoever. No issues whatsoever. Yeah, it is a bit dark. It's evening. And it gets dark early, as we are in fall, heading into fall here. Hey, but you know what? This worked. Also, I might look a little bit white, but that's just GoPro GoPro magic. Okay, excellent. The new antenna placement works. So that's a double win, right? I can now fly with confidence this quadcopter, and also more room for a lipo or action camera. Okay, there are some people on this field, as you can tell over there. So yeah, but we have already done what we needed to do. This is what we wanted to see. An actual usable range without being bothered by low R-XSR. And again, this was more than enough with the old placement to trigger low R-XSRs, especially on the way back. Now, like I mentioned, there is still a problem, and you see that in the top right corner. The R-XSR is actually 0. Yeah, so this was this RekonFPV I have here was one of the first production runs I think, and that's really no excuse maybe, because these are manufactured by HGLRC and they should know how to manufacture a quadcopter, but yeah, they didn't hook up the receiver correctly. It's configured as an S-bus receiver, even though it's an R-XSR receiver, so no telemetry and no R-XSR. Now, I don't really need R-XSR because, again, my radio would tell me, but nevertheless, the setup should be able to provide me with R-XSR information, so why not? So let's get back to the bench and address that as our second improvement bug fix for this RekonFPV. So far, so good. This worked out well. Boom. Nice landing, Dutch RC. Alrighty guys, back in the studio, and here is our little patient, and access to all the components we need to address are is easy, right? Over here we see the receiver, the R-XSR receiver, and over here we see the flight controller, and this is an F7 flight controller, so inverted stuff isn't a problem. This should just work. Now we need to do two things. Firstly, I'll flash a different firmware onto the receiver, an F-port firmware, right? And again, now it's connected. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but it's connected with 3 strands plus power and S-bus, that green wire over here. And hopefully you can see that there's a little gap in between the power and the green wire. And that's because the S-bus strand or port or tab is over here, the second tab from the top, and we need to use the third tab from the top, or the middle tab, which is the F-port tab. So that's what we need to do on the receiver end, and on the flight controller end we need to use another tab as well, as solder pad. Now it's connected to the R1, receive 1, and we need to hook that up to T1, the next one from where it's connected to. So a little bit of soldering, but it should be easy. And yeah, funny thing is that HRC didn't even use use the pads they say you should use in the manual, but it doesn't matter, this works, right? So let's first address the firmware on our receiver. I will take out this connector. I'll do that off screen because there's some shrink wrap I need to cut away a little bit off, so I can dislodge this connector over here, and then we'll connect this receiver to my radio. Alrighty guys, I'm gonna use my FrSky Tandem X20 radio to flash the firmware on the receiver. Hopefully you'll be able to see the screen better than I can probably. But okay, firmware. I've got a firmware folder on my SD card, and on that I have an R-XSR F-port firmware. Click. And flash external device. There we go. And flashing, yay! That looks marvelous. Although it is, no, it's the speed is alright. Okay, I'm gonna let that run. So that's the flashing of the firmware on the R-XSR receiver. And there we go, success, yay, close. Okay, so let's now address the close. Okay, let's now address the connector on the flight controller or the solder pad. Alrighty guys, I really do not know if this here camera position will work for you, but we'll give it a try. And so the soldering job here is super duper easy. I need to desolder this green wire over here for the receiver, right? Obviously. And then re-solder it one tap to the left, or one tap towards me, if you will. Now, the first thing you want to do when soldering is see if you can actually reach things without screwing things up. So let's try and move this wire out of the... No, that has no slop in it. I've already moved this here wire out of the way. So this should do. I'm gonna untangle the receiver wire so I have more slack. Okay, and these aren't huge solder pads, right? So it should be super duper easy to desolder things. Actually, what I'm gonna do is first pre-tin the new pad, so the T1 pad. That's what I'll do. I'm first gonna prepare that pad so I can quickly transfer the wire from one pad to the other. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of room. Things are kinda in the way, but it should be alright. Yeah, okay, I got a nice solder blob on my T1 pad, great. Then use the caliper or the pincer to grab onto the wire. Okay, oh damn it. Okay, I've got my wire de-soldered. That was easy. Still, things are very much in the way. Standoffs and such. Okay. Hartstikke. This might not be the best video ever to appear on, on YouTube, or at least part of this video. But let me hook off my soldering iron. So what I've done here is my receiver, and I have moved this green wire one pad towards me from R1 to T1, which is required for F port. Now the only thing left to do is move the wire one down or to the center on the connector as well. Remember, it's now on my S-bus pad on the receiver, and it should be moved to the F port. And you will probably not see much of what I'm doing here, but I'm lifting the little plastic finger on the receiver connector. Hartstikke. And then reinserting that connector pin to the center connector tab. Okay, and that's it. That's the hardware part here. And okay, so let's see what that looks like in Betaflight. I need to alter a couple of things in Betaflight, of course. Alrighty, let's hook up the quadcopter to the computer. There we go. You could probably hear my radio say telemetry recovered. I didn't have to rebind the receiver to my radio, which is nice. But at this point, the flight controller should not see any inputs. Let's check that. That is correct. Okay, ports. We shouldn't have to change the ports. Remember, I moved the input for the receiver from R1 to T1, so it is still on serial RX UART 1, right? Nothing changed there. Configuration, however, it is now no longer an S-bus receiver, but an F-port receiver. Hartstikke. Save and reboot. Okie dokie. Disconnect, connect, and probably, I'm not sure, I will not have inputs yet. No, okay. Let's go to the CLI, because we probably need to change some serial RX inverted stuff. Let's check. Get serial RX. Okay, my serial RX provider is set to F-port by now, by changing it a second ago, right? And serial RX inverted is off, and it should be on. So set serial RX inverted is on. Oops. On. Hartstikke. And half duplex is off. Should be on as well. Set serial RX half duplex is on. Save. Hartstikke. Let us see what we can see now. Receiver, and sure enough, things are back to, well, almost normal. I do need to do some centering from the looks of it, but I have me some inputs. That's great. So well, now I should have telemetry first of all and R-XSR in my OSD. Before we check that, I want to address one other thing. And that would be the action camera I use on this quadcopter. Now, I already showed you a little clip I recorded with this, a GoPro Hero 8 on the quadcopter. This is, however, a not so light action camera, right? It's not super duper light. It did work, as you could tell. The recording looked quite nice. However, I'd like to use a lighter action camera on this quadcopter. And I also have this, the Insta360 Go version 2. And you've already seen this mount over here. Let me show you a little clip. A little clip, as short as possible. I recorded with this camera on the quadcopter. Yeah, so it looks completely horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Really horrible. Yeah. I was thinking while flying the quadcopter, wow, this is gonna be a great video. People are gonna be so happy with this video. Yeah, horrible. Yeah, so, however, for that video I used this here mount. Also a TPU printed mount for the Insta360 Go version 2. But I think it was a little bit too loose, too sloppy. Yeah, it didn't hold on to the camera tight enough, or it wasn't mounted tightly enough on this GoPro type mount on the Rekon5. So I've already printed a second version. It looks a little bit sturdier. It's more, it's more plastic, if you will. And these teeth are a little wider. So I hope that will be an improvement as well. Let us see if it is. Here we go. And regrettably, this is a perfect illustration of how you don't win them all in this hobby. I'm actually not completely sure if it's apparent from this recording, but it's still not great, this recording. There are still wobbles and bobbles and vibrations in the video. It's kinda unusable. Yeah, so that is a bit of a shame. But again, this is a perfect illustration of how you don't win them all in this hobby, or any hobby for that matter. Sometimes an experiment doesn't work out, and I'm not completely sure whether it's the camera or the mount of the quadcopter itself flies great. It's probably that Insta360 Go version 2, yeah. You tell me in the comment section below what your experiences with that camera are. Maybe I should just get rid of that camera. Oh, by the way, the R-XSR does now work, as you can tell, in the upper right corner. So that did work out easily. So yeah, again, I'm probably gonna switch back to a GoPro Hero 8 for this quadcopter. Maybe a naked version. I have a naked version of the GoPro Hero 8, but even the full size worked out for this quadcopter. Yeah, my flight time will suffer a little, but the extra weight might add instability. Oh well. So again, this camera on this quadcopter, for now at least, didn't really work out. I feel that it was properly supported in this mount. Yeah, oh well, who cares? Okay, so what kind of video was this actually? It wasn't a review, not of the quadcopter, not of the camera, or maybe it is a little bit of a review of that camera, but it's more of an what is this hobby about video, right? This is not a hobby in which you just simply buy stuff. This is a ready-made quadcopter, you can simply buy it. But in a lot of RCs we buy, we want to tinker with them as well, and that's half the enjoyment, half the fun. Tinkering with them, improving them to fit your use of the RC. And that's, again, at least for me, a major part of the fun of this hobby. and there is no real other reason for me making this video. Again, it's not a review, and I'm definitely not gonna sell you on buying this here quadcopter, even though it is a very nice quadcopter. But yeah, again, this is mostly an illustration of how the hobby is for me. Half of the time, or maybe even more of the time I'm spending on this hobby is spent by trying to improve my RCs. You tell me also in the comment section below how that is for you. Maybe you don't have the time to tinker with RCs and you simply buy things and then, well, use them. But I am interested to see. For now, I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.